Welcome, everybody, to the most difficult Sick podcast that we have to do. Brought to you by the Sick Podcast Networks, the Blue Jays Center Pod. Cole Weston, Robin Tillamon, and I'm James Price. And it's, boys, it's been a positive pod almost every single time we've hopped on here. This one, not so much. 48 hours removed. We're going to talk about, we obviously know what we're going to talk about to start. And then we're going to break down the season that was and give you a little bit of off-season teaser kind of stuff. You know, we got to talk a little bit about that because guess what? Since you go to the World Series, you're diving right into the off-season right away. So, Jimmy, let's get this thing started, bud.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
We are just under 48 hours removed from, I think it's very easy to say, and you all will agree with me, the most heartbreaking loss that we have ever had to endure as sports fans of our ages. There's really not much else to say, boys. I just want to get your thoughts, kind of maybe initial reaction. Cole, take me through. The last two games, I think, because Game 6 was not just as bad, but it just kind of opened a wound that just it bled and bled and bled into the next day.
I want to preface it by saying the fact that it's the most devastating loss in our lifetimes, and you're a Leafs fan,
Yep.
is something that I was going to point to anyways later in this pod, is that despite all the heartbreaks that the Leafs fans go through, and I do have sympathy for you guys, you've never experienced this. It doesn't, you literally do not get closer to a championship parade than Game 7 of the World Series and extra innings. It doesn't happen. Or I'll take it a step further. A ninth inning lead in Game 7 of the World Series in your building. There was, in fact, statistically, a 91% chance the Jays were going to win that game in that ninth inning. And obviously they ended up losing the game. I'm a Chiefs fan, which is a touchy subject for most sports fans. And obviously we have championships in my lifetime. But like last year's Super Bowl, for example, there was so much stock put into, trying to get the three-peat and what that would mean for your legacy, and to go into the Super Bowl and get, shown the 50 states was pretty heartbreaking. And I didn't know if I was going to ever feel that level of heartbreak again. And then it didn't even take a year. Jays fans have never felt this before because they've never been to a World Series and lost it.
Yep.
So this is new for all Jays fans. And it sucks because it captured so much of this country. 45% of Canadians watched Game 7, the most watched Canadian sporting event in the history of time. And it ended in failure. And it didn't even end because you got beat. It ended because you beat yourself. And it doesn't get worse than that. Saturday night was one of the weirdest body experiences I've ever had. I sent Jimmy a photo. I don't know if we have it. If we do, Jimmy, throw it up. This was me 10 minutes after the game, sitting on my couch, not knowing what to do with myself. I don't see the photo up. If the photo is up.
Yep, it's up there.
Yep.
Oh, okay,
yeah, it's up there.
Perfect. Okay, so I just can't see it. So anyways, that I think says it all for the audience that's watching on YouTube. I don't know how long it's going to take to recover from that. Today's better than yesterday. Tomorrow's going to be better than today. But I legitimately think that until opening day 2026, I'm not going to get fully over this. Maybe ever, but definitely not until opening day of 2026 because as some analysts have said, the wrong team won the World Series, and it was Joseph. It was Caleb Joseph.
Caleb Joseph.
And while the overall statement might sound like a salty fan, the inside of that statement, the reading in between the lines, the team that had the narrative, the team that had the moments that will live in baseball history, the team that statistically outperformed the other team, the team that, the baseball world was behind, that was the Blue Jays, and that's what Caleb was referring to. So when he says the wrong team won, that's what he means. Obviously, the wrong team never wins because the team that won was the right winner. Like they went and won the game. Like of course, that's not what he meant. He just meant from a emotional standpoint, the wrong team won, and I've never felt this city this way. I'm so glad that I did make the move to Toronto 7 years ago or 8 years ago, and I got to experience the greatest baseball season of my life, the greatest sports season of my life, and I got to experience it with the city that the team was from. So I am grateful for that. But with that high, also comes the lowest of lows.
Yeah, it's a great stuff. Rob, how are you? How are you hanging in, bud?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a lot of the same. I think that what's really difficult about this whole experience is that there's so many converging sentiments that elicit different responses. And I think one that we're going to talk about later is appreciation for how amazing of a season it was. And the reality is, I'm going to frame it in a way that's going to make it sound awful, but I really don't intend it to. The fact that you were literally a foot away from winning the World Series is as close as you can humanly get to winning the World Series without actually doing it. So if winning the World Series is the 99th percentile outcome of a year, that is a 98th percentile because literally you could not get any closer than that, and that should be celebrated. This team should absolutely be celebrated for winning 94 games, for giving us memories that we'll never forget. That, for example, now you see a Jose Bautista bat flip moment, and it's just going to feel like old news because of all the great moments we had this year. It was truly incredible, magical, a very likable, talented team that answered so many questions. And at the same time, it's hard to compartmentalize all those positive emotions with the reality that we all just experienced the most gut wrenching, heartbreaking loss that you can ever experience as a sports fan. And I think that that's part of the reason why that's sort of the realization that I had during these last 48 hours is that we've all been big diehard sports fans for a long time, and obviously we've all experienced joy. We've all had teams that have won. We've all had teams that have lost. But we've never experienced this before. Whereas you lose, and on the other side of that loss was ultimate glory. I know, Pricey, you're connected to the Leafs a lot more than me and Professor. You've obviously experienced a fair share of heartbreaking moments, but it was in a sense, I guess for me, whenever one of my teams experiences a loss, I can always cope by saying, well, they never would have won anyway. That they had to win multiple rounds, even in 2023. I remember when the Blue Jays lost and we were all angry. We all very clearly could have easily said that, there's no chance this team was ever going to win a World Series, regardless of what happened, how weird it was. But this is it. This is a team that had one or two plays change, and that's it. You win the World Series, and the fact that that's not that we're not sitting here today, not World Series champions. I think that it's truly heartbreaking. I think that it's just really difficult to compartmentalize. I've been going back and forth, whether that's anger at two plays, and like I don't know how specific we want to get, but there are two plays that I want to highlight. We can do that probably later on after we all get our raw emotions out there. That really should have been executed more properly, and that happens. The Blue Jays win, and also sadness for the players, sadness for seeing Vlad sit the top step of the dugout after having one of the greatest postseason runs in history, and the fact that he's not going to be rewarded with an MVP or a World Series is just absolutely heartbreaking. Seeing Ernie Clement, who came up time after time and now sits there number one in terms of all-time hits in the postseason, and seeing him tear up. And I guess for me, Chris Bassett was the one that got me the most because he here's the thing is that this team will be together next year, most of it. It's not going to be the same team, obviously,
Sure.
but it'll be a lot of the same team. And Chris Bassett might not be there. And not only might he not be there, he might never have another shot at this ever again. He's 37 years old. We've already sort of seen him transition near this postseason to maybe a more secondary role, not so much of a guy who's going to be driving the bus. And yeah, it's just truly heartbreaking for this city, for these players, for us fans. And I think the biggest heartbreak of it all is that I think we all know we deserve better than that ending. And again, here's again full disclosure, full credit to the Dodgers. I understand what Caleb Joseph was trying to say there. If I'm a Dodgers fan, I'm counting it as sour grapes. I'm saying who cares?
You know what I'm saying? Robbie, you know what I'm saying as a Dodgers fan? I don't care. Here's the ring.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't
Exactly.
care what an analyst in Toronto
Exactly.
is saying. Sorry.
I understand. Yes, absolutely. And but I think what he really was trying, what he really meant there was that when you look at the totality of the situation, from a inning to inning, game to game perspective, the Blue Jays were statistically the better team, and the fact that they're not hosting a World Series parade in Toronto I think, is just truly devastating.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. And Michael Kay thought the Jays would have won the World Series with the run differential in the World Series, I guess, right? I mean, I'm just going to cap it off. You guys pretty much touched all the points. Jimmy, can we get Cole's picture back up there? It's pretty much me. You guys know, like, as you guys have mentioned a couple times now, I've seen playoff heartbreaks. But again, as a Leaf fan, you expect it. But it never gets easy. But you're like, yeah, it sucks, but what else is new? That feeling, I'm trying not to get emotional now talking about it because I'm just putting myself back in that situation again where I'm watching with a group of friends. And we're all loud the entire night. Loud, screaming, getting pissed off when things aren't going right. And when that home run goes from Will Smith and when Kirky grounds into the double play, I just sat there. I didn't know what to do. And I knew I had work in less than 5 hours. But I just sat there staring at a wall for a good 20 minutes. Because I didn't know what to do. It just didn't feel like that really did happen. Because, I think, Rob, you mentioned it, how there were so many things that had to go a certain way for this to happen. And it's like it all did. Like, you had second and third, nobody out in game 6. Of course, the ball gets lodged in the wall. Now, does that, Miles Straw probably scores on that, and you still have a guy at second, and the tying run's still at second. That doesn't change anything. However, the getting doubled off, it's gut-wrenching. And then everything to do with Game 7, which we're going to get into, anything you can think of that is just a gut punch happened. And to feel that sort of pain was awful on so many levels. And that's just an understatement of the century. And obviously, like I said, I worked the next day. And I don't know if it was just me being in the feels, but it just felt like, even with it being like a bright sunny day, it felt like there was a dark cloud over the country, over the city, that just no one was happy. Everyone was in this weird state of, I don't know what to do. And I've never seen that. And Cole, I think you mentioned about, getting over it and whatnot. You just won't. And I mentioned it to Rob, like, right after it happened. He's like, I don't know when we'll be able to get over this. And I'm like, I don't know if we will. Because when like you mentioned, I'm a Leaf fan. So we're used to first round exits. We get past first round, we're like, hey, we're great. It's gravy now at this point. Well, the only way to put this to bed is to win the damn thing. And it took 32 years to get back to this spot. It's tough, fellas. I don't know. Every time I think back, it's gut-wrenching. It breaks all of our hearts. And as Jays fans, this it's brutal. 48 hours later, and it's still, now that we're talking about it now, it's a gut punch and a half to still talk about it. Because let's be honest, I'm firing these things at you guys, and I bet you these replays are playing in your head right now, and it's awful. It's awful. But as diehard sports fans, heartbreak is it. But this is as Jimmy says here, the ultimate of all heartbreaks.
Yeah. In terms of the game 7, do we want to get into sort of the specifics? I do think that there are.
Yeah, we'll dive into it now. Kind of recapping more or less the last half of it, because as much as the first half was, for the most part, very fun. A lot of Trey Savage, Barger, the 11-2 game 1. Everyone's getting fired up. It was exciting. The game 6, I already talked about. If you guys want to touch on it again, we can. But the game 7 stuff is where everyone's head is at.
Right.
I'll just quickly touch on it, and you guys can just branch off wherever the hell you want to go.
Yep.
Look, you get the lead. It's plain and simple. You got a 2-run lead, I think it was. Yeah, in the latter half of the game. Trey Savage allows a bomb to Max Muncy. You're thinking, okay, it's getting hairy now, but you're still up a run. And you trust your guys for the most part. You trust Bass, you trust Dominguez, you trust Hoffman, and all hands on deck. You have Bieber in there if you need him. And it goes to there are so many other options that you could talk about. You could talk about I think it was the 8th inning. They had an opportunity to score. I think they had, was the bases loaded there? I can't remember what it was. Again,
no, it was Clement was at second for Andres Jimenez.
Right, a leadoff double.
Jimenez.
Right,
Yeah.
leadoff double from Ernie. Couldn't bring him around to score. And we go to that top of the 9th inning, and onwards is just brutal. Obviously, gets the first guy. I think he punched him out too. I can't remember.
He did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great slider.
And up comes Miguel Rojas.
Yep.
The number 9 hitter, who didn't start this series in the lineup. Andy Pages starts the series and gets taken out because he can't hit a beach ball. And Miguel Rojas comes in, and let's be honest, to that point, offensively, he's done nothing. You're not worried about it. Your 9 hitter. Shohei's on deck. Get this guy and have Shohei with 2 out and pray to God at that point. And he throws him a 3-2 slider, misses, and Rojas ties the game. A guy who was, I believe, never eclipsed 10 home runs in his career in a season.
Yep.
I mean, everything you can think of about, it doesn't make any sense. Happened. Now he gets out of the inning. We're like, okay, we're all devastated. Regardless, we're all freaking devastated. We think it's over, but you're still in this game. Bottom of the 9th. You get the bases loaded and 1 out. The winning run is 90 feet away with less than 2 out. This team all year long has been that team where you're going to score a run, put the ball in play, something good is going to come out of it. Varsho hits a chopper to second. Rojas, again, finding him. And let's be honest, he didn't play that thing clean, and he didn't look comfortable at all, and he was off balance throwing it home and beats Isaiah Kiner-Falefa by inches. And even Will Smith's foot comes off the base, but he gets it down in time. And everyone's talking about the leadoff and all that stuff from IKF, and we'll get into that. You guys can dive into that if you want. But he's out, and there's 2 away, and then they don't get a run in that inning because Ernie Clement drills a ball to left center. And Ikike and Andy Pages, who, by the way, Andy Pages was a middle-of-the-inning substitution in center. They are both sprinting back because they're playing in like they did against Barger there, doubled them off in the last game. Basically the same spot, but Ernie drives it, and it looks like it's going to drop. They're all in a dead sprint. They even run into each other. But somehow Andy Pages comes down with it. And you see Ernie's reaction. He's his hand onto his head like, what the hell just happened? Then you go to the top half of the 10th inning. Shane Bieber gets 2 outs on 3 pitches. Will Smith, I mean, there's hangers, and then there's this. A meatball of all meatballs to Will Smith, and he unties the game. You go to the bottom of the 10th inning, and I'll quickly wrap up. I want to let you guys talk here. Bottom 10, again, Yamamoto on the hill. So we're all crapping ourselves. We're like, well, it's curtains at this point. You're trailing now. He's on the bump. It's curtains. Vladdy leads off with a double. Vladdy leads off the inning with a double. I can't remember exactly the situation after that, but all I remember was bases loaded, corners with 1 out.
Yep.
And because they walk Barger because they don't want to face him, they want the double play and Kirk at the dish. broken bat, chopper up the middle, Mookie touches second on to first, season's over. Again, tying run, 90 feet away, less than 2 out. In back-to-back innings, the World Series, well, I guess one was a tying run, but regardless, a run is at 90 feet away with less than 2 out, and you can't get it done. So as much as everyone's going to yell at Hoffman, and you guys can do so if you'd please, there are so many events in the latter half of that game that just did not go right.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that before we even get to the specifics, it's really important that we reiterate just how many things had to go wrong. Stuff in the Blue Jays' control and stuff not in the Blue Jays' control. And obviously we can start going back to Game 6. Obviously, Professor, you were there. And the Lodge Ball one is not a conversation I really want to have because I don't think it really had that much of an impact. I think if that ball short hops the wall, goes off it, it's the same scenario. Miles Straw probably scores. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the approach going forward. Getting Barger obviously getting picked off there. Not picked off, but caught. How would you even call that? Forced out or whatever. Doubled off. Yes, that's the correct term. Obviously, that's a mistake on the Blue Jays' part. Between Game 6 and Game 7, other than the Bo Bichette home run, the 3-run home run that he hit off Ohtani in the third inning, there were 20 innings combined. And outside of that inning, 19 obviously, in 17 of the 19 innings, they had runners on base and scored a grand total of 2 runs between Game 6 and Game 7. Outside of that, they had, I believe, the runner on third with less than 2 out 5 different times and scored only once. They went 3 for 17 with runners in scoring position in Game 7, and obviously that's an execution problem. But there were a lot of stuff that didn't go, that was out of their control, that went against them. And specifically, I want to touch on DeAndres Jimenez at bat against Blake Snell in the bottom of the 8th inning. And obviously, Ernie Clement hits the double. Was it off Dreyer? I can't remember who he hit the double off of, but leadoff double. Was it Sheehan? It was Emmett Sheehan. And Blake Snell comes in. Max Muncy's in deep, the third. He's expecting a bunt. Not only does Andres Jimenez not bunt, he fights off a pitch and laced one that had an expected batting average of 590. Expected batting average of 590, assuming the infield is at normal depth. I can't imagine what the expected batting average is if the third baseman is halfway down the line. The fact that Max Muncy ball went right into the snow cone of his glove and he caught it, I mean, that is just the ultimate bad break there. I think that ball might have, I hate to be too graphic, that ball had a better chance of decapitating Max Muncy than finding his glove. With how hard that ball was hit.
Great point.
And unfortunately, it did. Unfortunately, he found the glove for it out, and the Jays ended up scoring. Obviously, the Ernie Clement one, I think that had a 380 expected batting average, and that's a 380 expecting batting average, not assuming that they're playing shallow, not assuming that the left fielder and center fielder would both collide into each other. And the fact that didn't go their way, those are just 2 things that you just could not control. As bad as the execution was, 2 things that just simply could not have been executed more perfectly by the hitters, by the 8-9 guys, and unfortunately they weren't rewarded for it. But there were 2 plays that are going to sit with me for a long time, and they're going to sit with me for a long time because they just simply weren't executed properly by the Blue Jays. And we'll start with Jeff Hoffman. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Jeff Hoffman over the course of the year, and for good reason. He had a lot of really uneven moments this season, and he did a good job of shutting us all up in the playoffs. He was spectacular. Obviously, everyone's going to remember the Game 7 against Seattle, the performance that he had, striking out the side, truly remarkable performance there. But in that inning, you have top of the 9th, 1 out. You're facing Miguel Rojas, who, as you mentioned, Pricey, earlier, is plain and simply not a guy who really should terrify you in that moment. And it's a 3-2 pitch. Miguel Rojas, a guy who, during the course of the regular season, had an OPS in the 500s against right-handed pitching. And Jeff Hoffman, instead of challenging him with a fastball, decided that he would get a little cute and throw him something soft. And not only did he decide to not trust his fastball, but the pitch, I believe it was a slider. I can't tell because it was an ultimate hanger, missed in the inner half of the plate. Miguel Rojas, in that situation, the only way he kills you is if you miss in that side of the plate, and he's able to pull it to left field and hit a game-tying home run. If you throw Miguel Rojas your typical 97-mile-per-hour fastball, you are going to get him out. more often than not. And the fact that he didn't challenge him in that situation, I think that's just a terrible decision. Plain
Also,
and simply, I think that if you throw him a strike there, even if he hits it, you can't afford to walk him with Shohei Ohtani on deck as the go-ahead run. And even if you throw him a fastball, chances are he's probably not going to hit it because he's not a good hitter. He's not a good hitter against right-handed pitching, and that's a really poor executed one. And I hate to blame Jeff Hoffman for it. I think it's warranted to blame him for that instance. I don't think it's warranted to blame him for the whole
no, it's
season
not.
falling apart, like the way he tried to do it. I appreciate the accountability, but ultimately that's just simply unfair to him overall because there were, like I mentioned, so many other ways that that game could have ended. You score a run in the top of the eighth, and that doesn't matter if it's a home run because you have a more than a one-run cushion at that point. So feel bad for Jeff Hoffman. I know that just like all of us, he wanted the most to succeed in that situation. So it's really unfortunate. But the real big one, and I think that this one really is not being talked about enough, and I find simply gut wrenching. But there's a lot of talk about IKF and the lead he took, a lot of conversation, and I think that that's the wrong way of approaching it. I think that the bigger conversation is that if he runs straight through the base, they win the World Series. It's quite literally as simple as that. And because here's the thing, obviously you guys know this, but there's two reasons why you slide. It's not because he gets to the base faster. You don't get from point A to point B faster by sliding into a base than by straight sprinting. The reason why you slide is one, to avoid a tag, which there wouldn't have been in that situation because it was a
Mhm.
force play. And number two, because you don't want to overrun the base. That's why you slide the second and third, because if you overrun the base, you're out. There's no incentive to not to slide in that situation. If Isaiah Kiner Falefa, and it's awful to say this because it's putting it all on one guy, if he runs straight through the base, they win the World Series. It really is that simple, guys. I mean, I'd love to see some physics behind it on the sprint speed, but you look at that photo, the fact that he was a foot behind, if he runs straight through that base, it's over. It's over.
I
Yeah.
will.
And I
I
think
will
that
say
that's going to
this.
haunt us for a while.
I will say this, and Cole, you play ball all your life. Running through home on a play at the plate, regardless of situation, just you don't see that happen, right?
Yep, that's true. Baseball instinct. I'm sure that had
Yeah.
to do with it. Yeah.
Albeit, you got to know force play. You got to get home. I don't want to swear, but absolutely freaking boogie. And he did not.
I'll take it a step further, James.
Yeah.
Because the IKF play is, I think, rightfully where this conversation of what went wrong, where you should lead off. So I did want to go there first, and I also want to say before I say anything, it's not just on IKF.
Yep.
As Whit Merrifield has articulated, as some other analysts have
Chris
articulated.
Colabello, I think he mentioned it on Twitter too. The
Um,
lead off.
it's not just an IKF, and I'll explain the entire situation. But I do want to point to the running through home. Unfortunately, in 2025, if you run through home and the catcher is making a play at home, and because you didn't slide, you ran him over, you're out. So obviously on that play, you have no idea where the catcher's going to end up catching the ball. So IKF does have to slide. So I don't necessarily completely agree with people running with that narrative. The running through home plate is using it in hindsight of where Will Smith ended up catching the ball. If you run him over, you're out, by the way. So I just want people to know that if you're out. So that wouldn't have helped. But if you are going to slide to win the World Series, you do it head first, because that's how you get from point A to point B faster, by sliding. If you're going to slide and become faster at the point of destination, you need to be going head first. The momentum has to continue forward by sliding feet first. And this is a pet peeve I've had in Major League Baseball, not just at home plate, but I've had this pet peeve in Major League Baseball for years. And the number one reason to not sliding head first is safety. So that's why Major League Baseball players don't do it, because one slide at second base in game 68 of the regular season, breaking your thumb and missing 6 weeks is not worth sliding head first. Game 7 of the World Series, for literally anybody on the team, but especially a journeyman and a guy who literally his impact is base running and defense, you do everything in your power to be safe at home plate. It is head first into Will Smith's leg. It is not just head first into the plate. It's into his fucking leg. You have to be safe there. Now, if you are going to slide feet first, here's the number one thing that people are talking about. It's the actual leadoff. So, according to Whit Merrifield, this is baseball 101 at the big league level from spring training week 2 until the end of the season. You, in that situation, are a caution first approach, which means your number one thing is not getting doubled off. So, the next hitter has a chance to hit a single or the wild pitch or a pass ball or whatever. You're 90 feet away from home. Getting the next hitter up gives you a better probability, obviously, than being so aggressive that you could potentially get doubled off. But here's my problem, and here's where Whit even has allowed the conversation and the debate to lie, which is don't argue and don't blame IKF. Blame the system. And I am blaming the system. If that's how Major League Baseball is actually teaching it, you're wrong. And not only are you wrong with a righty at the plate and Max Muncy 11 feet off the bag, you're wrong when it's Dalton Varsho. And at the Major League level, in Game 7 of the World Series, in 2025, analytics is at the top of everyone's playbook. And analytically, the chances Dalton Varsho hits a liner to third base and IKF not having enough time to get back to base, to get back to third base and being safe is next to nothing.
They have a better odds of Will Smith backpicking him than that happening.
Exactly. And here's so the numbers came out. IKF's primary lead, so before the pitch was thrown, was 7.1 feet. Or no, 7.8 feet, I think it was. It was less than 8 feet. And it was more than 7 feet. His secondary lead, which for anybody that is unfamiliar, is literally after the pitch is thrown. How far do you get off the bag after the pitch is thrown? He finished with an 8.9 foot lead. I'm 6'2". James, you're 5'10". Rob, you're
sure.
Well, yeah, whatever. I think IKF is listed at 5'11", 5'10", whatever he is. Point is that a 9-foot lead is literally one step and you're back at the bag. That's not enough when you're the winning run of the World Series. It is simply not enough. You need to be at least double digits off that thing, and that's the thing. If he is 1 foot, if he took one extra step in his secondary, he's safe at home plate with the slide that he had. So that is where the conversation is a problem. Whether that's a John Schneider, Carlos Fablis, baseball entirety at Major League level, because at the grassroots level, that's not how it's taught. At the grassroots level is you're as far off the bag as the third baseman's off the bag, if not a little bit more. Because if you're as far as the third baseman is, he can't get to the bag faster than you. If you read the ball well, he's not going to beat you to the bag. You have the time from the bat makes contact to the ball, and after he catches it, and him going to the bag to get back to that bag and not get doubled off. That is the amount of time you have. So you
let me get
have
this thing
to
right.
back to third.
Let me get this thing right, Cole. You said Max Muncy was 11 feet off the base. Is that correct?
He looked about 11 feet
sure.
off the bag.
Let's just say that for argument's sake. And you said IKF secondary. What was it? 8 something? You said
8.9 feet.
Right. So you learn in pipsqueak baseball. On a line drive, you freeze.
Yeah.
So you get the line drive is right at Max Muncy.
You go back. Yeah.
You dive head first, you're fine.
Yep. And if you're not,
you freeze like you're supposed to.
That's my issue. Is that even if, and I think that's my biggest problem with this conversation, maybe, is that even if he gets doubled off on a line drive to third base because he's 13 feet off the bag, I promise you, these conversations aren't happening. I promise you, they're not happening. All baseball fans would understand that in that situation, the probability of that happening was so slim. When Andres Jimenez lined out to Max Muncy, nobody was like, "Oh fuck, Andres Jimenez pulled the bump back too late," and if he didn't pull the bump back so late, he would have been able to pull the ball or put it up the middle. He wouldn't have been so late on it. He wouldn't have hit to Max Muncy, who was standing 13 feet in front of third base. Nobody said that. When Ernie Clement hit the ball to the left center gap, over the outfielders' heads, into the warning track. Nobody was like, oh, Ernie has to hit a line drive there. Ernie has to hit a ground ball there. He has to give the runners a chance no, nobody is saying that. So if IKF was just a little further off the bag and he got doubled off because the improbable happened, people understand. The improbable happened. It's literally
Also,
in the sentence.
You got to remember who's hitting too. You have an extreme pull left-handed hitter in Varsho, who I believe I saw Chris Black thread on Twitter that over his all the plate appearances he had during. Did you guys see this? He had it was one ball that was hit sharply to the third baseman all season long.
Yeah,
because his bat path and the way contact, it just doesn't go that way.
Yeah,
and obviously this is all heat of the moment. It's all heat of the moment. You don't really think of these sundry issues in the moment. But it was enough to cost them a World Series.
Yeah, it was, and unfortunately for IKF, that might be the difference. That might be the difference from him having a job on this team next year. And I'm sorry about that, and I do want to agree with I think we started the whole conversation with this, is that we didn't lose the World Series because IKF didn't do that. There was plenty of moments where we had a chance to win the World Series where we didn't even have to get to the IKF scenario. So just like Jeff Hoffman, just like Shane Bieber, just like the offense in Game 6, Dalton Varsho, who had a pretty pitiful World Series.
In Game 6 and 7, he had 9 at bats and with 13 runners on base, and he didn't get a hit. He had one ball that left the infield. They were either a strikeout or a ground ball.
So this isn't on one person. The Blue Jays choked a World Series, which sucks because we were never anticipated to get there. We had all the big moments that we needed to have to even put ourselves in that position. And then even when we got to the World Series, none of us were necessarily expecting us beating or even having a chance to beat the Dodgers in 6, let alone in 7. So credit, obviously, to getting to that point and proving everybody that they had a team that nobody had rightfully valued. And unfortunately, when you had 4 games at home to win the World Series and you lost 3 of them.
So I got that Chris Black thread, Rob, and I want to read it out because this will give Jays fans really, the khakis must have just gone to sleep. It was late for them on a Saturday night, had a few beverages. They were like, okay, let's call it quits. We'll have it a night and we'll come back to the ballpark tomorrow. Little they know there's no freaking game tomorrow. Anyways, this is a quote I'm just going to quote Chris Black, everything he says here. Always respect the opinions of players, former and current. Just disagree with the logic here. Why? Give me the numbers. Here they are. Dalton Varsho has here nearly 2,500 career plate appearances. He has hit the ball, batted balls, 1,634 times. 342 have been line drives. 58 have been to the opposite field. 4 hit to third base. Again, these are 4 of his 1,634 batted balls.
And he didn't even go one step further.
I'll go the other further. There's one more.
Okay, is it arm side?
No, 3 of 4 were jam shots. 1 was a true line drive for his whole career. So in other words, if the logic is protect against getting doubled up, then they were protecting against something that had at best a 0.1% chance of happening. Conversely, Varsho has hit 412 ground balls to first, second, and shortstop. This type of play where good primary and secondary leads would have won you the World Series. 1 line drive versus 412.
Yeah, and who knows if that 1 line drive to third base that was caught. First of all, who knows if it was caught? Second of all, who knows if it was caught going towards third base? Because again, that's the only.
Actually, you want to know what it was?
That he gets out.
It was a soft line drive. I'm actually watching the. Oh no, hold on a minute. Yeah, it was literally a couple soft line drives. That was it. Nothing barreled up.
Yeah. So
nothing barreled up. It's pretty sad stuff. And now we got to try and flip the page because luckily,
that's not hard.
Yeah.
With this team, luckily, it actually isn't that hard.
Yeah. And as much as the ending, let's forget it. Game 3, right? 3? Yeah. 3,
Yeah,
6, and
ending
7
game.
were miserable. Actually, screw that. I have some more stats for you guys. You want them? I'll do one last miserable stat. Why? Because they're
All right,
easy
let's
to
do it.
find
Oh,
at this point.
I have one.
And it backs up what Caleb Joseph was talking about and what we were trying to explain. About the Dodgers, not really winning the World Series. The Jays kind of giving it away as well.
Yeah.
Dodgers joined the 1975 Reds as the only team in history to rally from a 3-run deficit on the road to win the World Series. There's one. Blue Jays left 14 on base in Game 7, which ties a record for the most in a World Series Game 7, joining the 1924 not New York Football Giants. They played baseball back in 24. Here's the two stats that back up Caleb Joseph. Dodgers had a 203 batting average, Rob's favorite stat, in the 2025 World Series, and is the lowest by the winning team since 1966, the Baltimore Orioles. Here's one more. The Dodgers, -8 run differential in the World Series, is the lowest by a winning team since the 1996 New York Yankees. As Caleb Joseph said, the better team, the team who played the better baseball, lost the series.
Yeah, I got a couple more.
Go for it.
The Jays led the league in runners in scoring position in the regular season with a ridiculous 292 batting average. In the postseason, the Jays were 4th, and keep in mind that's including the Yankees, who were ahead of them, the Guardians, who were ahead of them, the Guardians who played 3 games, obviously. So the Jays were the only team. They were first for teams that played more than one. Or I guess the Yankees played 2 rounds. So okay, I'll include the Yankees. So, but yeah, obviously we beat the Yankees. Guess where the Dodgers were with runners in scoring position in the postseason that had 12 teams?
Right near the bottom.
9th. They were 9th with batting average with runners in scoring position. So there's that stat, but that wasn't even the heartbreaking one. The heartbreaking one was we tied and set the new single season postseason record for runs and hits in a single postseason run. And I think we're the only team with over 90 I think we're the only team with over 92 runs scored in a single postseason to not win the World Series.
It's pretty sad.
Now, if you're gonna draw up an analogy, it's so many things had to go right to get to this moment, and once you got to this moment, so many things had to go wrong to not do it. It's the equivalent of being stranded in the Atlantic Ocean, swimming for months with chop, with storms, with heavy rains, and then you make it to shore, and as you hop onto the island, the shark attack comes.
That's an interesting analogy. It works.
That's a perfect analogy. The second that you started saying,
how'd you figure that one out?
I was like, yeah, this is perfect.
How'd you figure that out?
It came naturally, brother.
Love it.
James,
big brain.
James, I would like to lead off with a simple, enthusiastic segue to how this season can be remembered or even flipped to a positive page. And I'm not taking credit. Blue Jays enthusiast, which of course Blue Jays enthusiast on Twitter tweets this tweet after the Jays lose the World Series. This is his tweet, and not that it's not even a statistical evaluation of a team to give you a hope into 2026. It has nothing to do with the big picture. It's literally, in other words, an analogy pointing to some precedents for this Toronto Blue Jays team. The 2014 Royals, the first World Series appearance since winning the title 30 years prior. They lost in heartbreaking fashion in Game 7 at home. They faced a generational pitching performance by a starting pitcher on the other team who came in to deliver the final out, and he got World Series MVP. The 2015 Royals,
we all know,
won the World Series.
Know.
Blue Jays
we
fans
all know in this market. We all know in this market.
Won the World Series, and they had a lot of the same makeup that this 2025 Blue Jays team has. Didn't strike out, a lot of contact, good defense, an elite catcher.
Yeah.
I just wanted to, that's a soft spot for Rob. And like I said, that's no statistical proof to why you should believe in this team next year, and we will get to the actual things that
We'll get to that.
are tangible. But just know that a team can come back from this.
They can. They absolutely can. It's baseball. Baseball's weird. We've said it all year. And we talk about all this negative stuff today, and that's really all it's been for the last 48 hours. But you do have to give these guys an absolute shit ton of credit, because going into this season, I mean, we made our predictions. I said 87 wins, I think it was, but I'm like, that's a wild card at best, right? And you guys had them missing the postseason, and rightfully so. A lot of people did, right? When you come dead last in the American League East the year before, and let's be honest, you don't have some crazy offseason bringing in everybody, you don't expect the positive regression to actually really work in your favor. And for the first couple months of the year, it didn't look great. You have Bo Bichette hit that home run in Texas in a series where it was downright miserable after you got swept by the Rays at Steinbrenner Field, and then you go to Texas and I think score like 4 runs or 5 runs and you win a series. Felt weird, and it flipped the season. It flipped the season from there, and we started to think, they go on a little run. We've seen runs before. Baseball's a long year. You can win 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row. Fine, you're okay. That Yankees series at home, they sweep them. We obviously know everything that happened. I don't need to reiterate that stuff. Then they got first in the division from there, and they never looked back. It looked bleak near the end of the year, though, didn't it? Holy smokes. You had to sweep the Rays, which felt impossible.
And the Varsho Grand Slam, too.
No,
that was looking a little hairy, too.
It turned the season, right? It flipped the season. There's a great video I saved on TikTok, and it was like the Moneyball clip of that Varsho homer, because it was like, we're down and out, and then dink, oh my God. And it just obviously propelled them to winning the American League East, which nobody saw coming. You go to the ALDS against the Yankees. Everyone's picking the Yankees because, of course, they were. The Jays dog walked the Yankees. Other than one bad pitch from Louis Varland. Actually, it wasn't even the bad pitch per se. It's just Aaron just being a freak and hitting it off.
A ball fly Madison Barger.
Right, exactly. There you go. They dominated the Yankees. Knocked them out of the DS. You go on to the CS. Mariners, you lose the first 2 games at home. You think, we're cooked. No, you come back home with at least a chance. You win both games at home. Springer down 3-1.
The only team to lose the first 2 games at home in the ALCS and come back to win the series.
Right, there you go. And obviously down 2 runs in the 7th inning of Game 7. I mean, you think it's over, right? You haven't got anything going offensively. Can't get the big hit. George Springer 3-run shot. Obviously the Bautista one. We use that as our intro stuff here, but I mean that might have to change.
It's changing.
Yeah, there you go. And you're going to the World Series, and we're not going to talk about the World Series. We've done that enough today. But all of those moments, I mean, it puts 2015 and 16 in the distant rearview mirror.
Yep.
And I would argue we should touch on a World Series moment if we're going to touch if we want to avoid most of them.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Because we had multiple, but if you're going to touch on just one World Series moment, I find it hard pressed for it not to be the 3-run shot from Bo Bichette in Game 7 to give you a 3-0 lead in the 4th inning of Game 7 of the World Series against the Dodgers with Bo Bichette on one leg.
Off the greatest player ever. That moment, literally, and I think that 25 million Jays fans felt this. In that moment, you were like, holy shit, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we've never been closer. Like it literally, like that was the biggest home run hit in Blue Jays history, bar Joe Carter. And it unfortunately ended up obviously not mattering, but
it's going to go into the archives, similar to Jose Bautista's home run off Ryan
archives.
Madsen. Right. Ryan Madsen home run in Kansas City, right, in Game 6. It's going to go right there as truly, unfortunately, but in the moment, one of the biggest home runs, but because of the result, it's going to go a little bit unforgotten. But I think to me, that home run is just so, and we'll talk about the offseason in a bit, but that's just a pitch for Bo Bichette that this guy's a fucking warrior. You know what I mean? This is a guy that you want to go to war with, that he's playing on one leg. Clearly, I mean, that that MRI or whatever scan you're gonna do on his knee after the season is now, it's gonna look really ugly. It's gonna light up like a Christmas tree because he was broken, and yet the fact that he was still able to go dead center off Shohei in
crazy.
Game 7. I mean, you had your Bo Bichette moment. We've had a ton of Vlad moments during the playoffs. He had an incredible run, answered every question, and you had one from Bo. And then from that moment on, despite the fact that the result wasn't what we wanted, you got to keep this core alive. You got to keep the Bo and Vlad era alive because that was incredible.
And we'll get into that in a second. We definitely will.
Yeah.
Someone we haven't mentioned once in this 15 minutes of recording the pod that I think most definitely deserves a chance here and needs some time is a 22-year-old kid who pitched an A ball in April and proceeded to come up here and not only shove in the regular season and help this team make the postseason, carve up the Yankees better than we've ever seen someone carve up the Yankees in a playoff game. Ridiculous. Seattle didn't have a great first start. I can't remember, honestly. The Seattle series is a damn blur. But all I know is that he went to Dodger Stadium in a 2-2 series, looking to bring us back home with 2 chances to win the World Series, and he put up the best rookie performance in any postseason history in that line against that lineup in that ballpark. I mean, Trey Savage just
and threw the most pitches he's ever thrown in his pro career,
right,
and then came back 3 days later and pitched in Game 7 of the World Series in relief. Like
seven innings of 12 punch-outs, and Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani went like 0 for 8 with 5 strikeouts.
Yeah, I mean, and the Seattle series, he had a rocky first start in Game 2 of the Seattle series in our building. He then dominated Seattle in Game 5 or in Game 6.
Game 6.
Game 6.
Game 6.
Yeah. We're down 3-2, and our season's on the line with Trey Savage on the mound in our building again against that same team. And he dominated them to give us a chance in Game 7, and then obviously we win Game 7. So Trey Savage, bar one start, was unfucking believable and had one of the greatest postseason runs a pitcher has ever had in history.
So here's the thing about Trey Savage, just to wrap it all up. He had 8 big league starts. 5 of his 8 big league starts were a game in the regular season, 161, that you needed to win to clinch the division. You had a playoff debut against the Yankees, which, so obviously we all know what that means. That means that all the eyeballs, not only in this country, but in the country down south, is watching that game against a Yankees team who was the number 1 offense in baseball that year. You had an ALCS elimination game and multiple World Series games. In his first 8 starts, those were 5 of the 8 starts, and the record in those games was 5-0.
Yeah,
he was it 5-0, and they lost the Game 2 against the Mariners.
No, he said he didn't.
I'm isolating those 5 specifically.
Oh,
yeah. No, yeah. He had 8 starts this year, like Rob said. 5 of them were in the postseason. So Rob just replaced one of the regular season ones with
right.
Which rightfully so. Game 2 against Seattle, you're down 1-0. You win, you lose. No matter what, you have to go to Seattle and you have to win a game. So I don't mind taking that one out of the equation as well. And yeah, Rob's right. And he literally just got himself opening day. Like in all likelihood that he's your opening day starter. Maybe they give it to Gavin Gossman just out of respect
or someone else they sign.
Maybe train for a big lefty from Detroit. I
don't know. I'll go grab him right across the road.
Full screams from Pittsburgh. Hey now.
But he earned himself. He earned himself. Like there's the Davis Schneiders who got the long leash after an incredible run in the regular season. There's the Bowden Francis who got the long leash after an incredible run in the regular season. Nobody has had the run that Trey Savage just had, and his leash is longer. His leash is his contract. His leash is the 6 years he's eligible to be a Toronto Blue Jay. That's his leash because of what he just did. So,
and not only that too, but it just sort of justifies everything. Like all the talk about the front office, and we're not immune to it. I mean, I've been on here multiple times saying about how calling for Ross Atkins' job for years, but the reality is that it worked. Like his plan, and in the end of the day, it worked. Unfortunately, didn't get to a World Series, but it was not because of a lack of team building. I mean, obviously, look, Max Scherzer. I've said many times that he should not be pitching in a playoff game after what we saw in
Yeah.
September, and that image of him barking at John Schneider in Seattle will forever live. You know, Shane Bieber, trading a top 5 prospect to get him right off Tommy John surgery, and look, Shane Bieber, it was a bit of a mixed result in the postseason, but we're not going to forget how well he pitched in the regular season to get you to that number 1 seed, which obviously we all know how important it was. I don't think you get there if it's Jose Barrios making those starts in September, right? And then obviously game 3 in Seattle, you're down 2-0. He has a great outing in the World Series in LA. That worked out. Obviously, look at all the players that they picked up, ancillary players. The Nathan Lucas, the Miles Straw, the Ernie Clement, the Eric Lowers. Like all these players were acquired by Ross Atkins.
Yep.
And all of them contributed to the most happiest moment of our sports fandom, really.
Yeah,
he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, trusting George Springer.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was on the chopping block.
We haven't even talked to George Springer yet in 55 minutes.
We did mention the biggest moment, so we didn't do we didn't do a complete injustice. But yeah, trusting George Springer when we were just trying to podcasts alike to us. We're just trying to find ways to navigate having him exit, having him leave, not being a factor on this payroll and in this lineup to start this year. That is where we wanted George Springer in this front office and in this coaching staff. Trusted them and trusted all the guys that Rob just mentioned, and developed finally a pitching prospect from the ground up, and the best one that we've ever seen. Even including Alek Manoah, who was a Cy Young candidate or Cy Young finalist in Rookie of the Year. So Trey Savage, because of the postseason moments, has eclipsed the Alek Manoah. And I don't want. I know I just did, and I feel a little bit bad that I'm about to do this, but unlike Alek Manoah, I do have a lot more faith in Trey Savage's mindset going forward and continuing to progress in his big league career. And I think that he will be a future part of this rotation at the front end for at least the next 6 years.
The mindset question is answered. There's no bigger stage than pitching multiple times in the World Series, pitching in Game 7, pitching in elimination games. He's answered all the questions already, and he hasn't had a full season in the big leagues.
Yeah, he said
there will never be a bigger game in his life than the games he's pitched. There will never be more high pressure than that.
Trey Savage said he was built for this, and boy is he ever. Boy is he ever. I mean, there ain't no gas in the tires or whatever the hell it is with Alek Manoah. I mean, you go out there and you back it up, and Trey has done nothing but back that up. And you mentioned George Springer, and I wanted to touch on this because we talked about Bo being hampered, and then he hits the 3-run home run. We're all like, holy crap. Dude also, I don't know what he did to his side on that one swing in LA, left the game.
Yeah.
Proceeded to come back home for Game 6 and 7 and go 5 for 10.
Yeah.
I mean, dude was outstanding. You know, the season he had a 948 OPS, 31 homers, 27 doubles, drove in 82, scored 104 runs, had 17 stolen bases, by the way. You know, and in the postseason, he had 4 homers, had 6 doubles, had an 890 OPS. He was outstanding all year long, and he was the George Springer that you signed to the $150 million contract years ago. Did we expect it in year, what is this, 5 now? No, but here we are. Baseball's weird for the 36-year-old Georgie.
Yeah, and 6 months ago, George Springer was on path to be a cautionary tale. Be careful what you wish for when you want to spend money on free agents. And now George Springer is going to come back to Toronto in 2045 and be celebrated, rightfully so, because of one of the all-time Blue Jay moments we'll ever have. It's Joe Carter's impossible to hit a home run more important than that, and Vlad almost damn near did it. George Springer, that's incredible, man. It's incredible how he just completely shifted the narrative on his contract, on his hierarchy within Blue Jays history. George Springer is going to go down as one of the greatest Blue Jays of all time, and I imagine saying that 6 months ago.
Oh, no doubt. Boys, let's move on. Oh, you're good?
I do want to just quickly one line.
Yep.
Vladdy, like we said, answered every question we needed answered. We finally have a legit franchise star that we can trust for the next decade. Ernie Clement just earned himself the Kike Hernandez lifetime deal that the Dodgers have given him. You don't need to be what you were in this postseason to remain a Toronto Blue Jay for the rest of your entry-level contract because what you just did in the postseason has given you the right to be, at worst, a utility player for this team for as long as you want. Trey Savage, obviously, we've already touched on. George Springer, not only is he going to go down as one of the greatest Blue Jays of all time, but coming into next year, it's actually unfortunate that we need to find a way to replicate the production because, you can't expect George Springer to produce at that level again. But regardless, he's going to be a part of your lineup next year. And if you didn't have the year that he had, that probably wouldn't have been the case going into his final year on the deal. Bo Bichette, not that there should have been a whole lot of questions going into the World Series, whether or not the Jays should.
Well, his health, his physically, that was the question.
Right, but I'm talking from a contract perspective. Not that there should have been a lot of questions whether or not the Jays should have re-signed him. We didn't need the World Series to happen. We didn't need him to perform in the World Series to convince us to re-sign him. But then he goes out there and he fucking balls. And now he is legitimately given the Jays zero leverage. You have to re-sign Bo Bichette. There is no reason on this planet that you can point to that means that you don't sign Bo Bichette for 2026 and for the next decade. Hold on, I'm not done. Because I do want to get to the guys.
Yeah.
Chris Bassett, unbelievable tenure for the Toronto Blue Jays, and a guy that again he isn't quite in the Max Scherzer realm because Chris Bassett deserves more respect than that because of how long he's been with the Blue Jays and his role that he played. He deserves for us to re-sign him. And I actually want Chris Bassett back, and that's a conversation we'll have for another day. Max Scherzer literally gave us a debate for our next podcast, whether or not Max Scherzer should be a Toronto Blue Jay next year. Addison Barger has earned himself an everyday role in next year's lineup. And then Eric Lauer, same thing. Eric Lauer came in on a minor league deal halfway through the season, saved our season. We don't get to the first place in the American League East without Eric Lauer on this team. No. And then Eric Lauer's performance in the 18-inning game gave us a chance to steal one in Dodger Stadium that we didn't deserve to win. And
it definitely cost me a few hours of sleep, that's for sure.
Yeah, has earned himself the right to come back with this team next year and be a part of it. And those are the guys that I really wanted to touch on. Sir Anthony Dominguez is a free agent. Max Scherzer is a free agent. Shane Bieber, I hope that he opts in with us because I think that, or I hope we give him a contract. I hope we give him a contract. Bo Bichette, obviously a free agent, not worried about him. Chris Bassett, and then IKF. I'm sorry, but yeah, I wanted to mention.
Hey, friends.
Just Ty friends. Yeah, Ty Friends, sorry, congratulations on your Gold Glove. But I wanted to mention, the 9 guys or whatever it was, the 8 guys that I mentioned that really headlined this postseason and will live on in Blue Jays memories forever.
Yeah, I want Jays fans to really get an idea as to what Vladdy did in this postseason. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now, and hit 412 with a 506 on base, had a slug of 824. An OPS of 1,300, had 28 hits in 17 games. He had 8 homers.
29.
I believe these are the stats prior to Game 7.
Oh, stay hot, score app. Never mind.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, I think
to that. Very similar to that.
Very similar to that. He, if it wasn't for Ernie Clement, he'd be tied for first for the all-time postseason hits record. Instead, Ernie Clement beat him because Ernie Clement got 30 in Game 7. So,
all right. Well, if that's before the damn thing, he also had 7 strikeouts and walked 8 times. If I had that one strikeout from Game 7,
yeah. He homered more than he struck out.
That's a joke.
No, I believe there were more walks than 8, though. No,
he didn't walk Game 7. So if you guys are saying that this is just missing the Game 7 stuff, then he just walked 8 times.
I'm not sure that's accurate, but either way, before I maybe Prof can look up the stat, but I do want to say one thing. This is not so much about stats and everything, but just yesterday seeing Vlad's Instagram post of him on the plane in Mexico with his daughters and just him being in good spirits and smiling. I don't know why. That just made me feel better. It just made me feel better because I just really wanted it for him, and I know how heartbreaking it must be, and to see him.
It was way off, wasn't it?
Yeah, and in good shape.
Stupid. Yeah. What was it?
And I agree, Rob. I agree. I also want to quickly say there will be apologies that I have for some Toronto Blue Jays executives at the end of this podcast. Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s postseason stats: 18 games, 29 hits, 15 RBI, 8 home runs, 14 walks,
Yeah, I knew the
7
walks were higher than
strikeouts.
that.
Were they maybe that didn't count intentional walks? I don't know.
Yeah, a
Oh,
390.
probably. That's probably what it is.
Yeah, a
probably what it is,
397, a 397 batting average, a 494 on base percentage, a 795 slug, and a 1289 OPS, 58 total bases.
And you know what's
And
incredible about all
and
that,
for the
Cole?
guy that kills worms, only grounded into 2 double plays.
And you know what's even crazier about all that is that other than the 2 games to start the Seattle series, he was doing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I don't think he had a hit in those first 2 games, and everything else, every other game, he was just dominant.
Yep.
It's just remarkable.
true.
Now, let's move forward just a little bit here. We'll do a little teaser
Yes.
here at the end of the offseason. We'll have more of an offseason pod probably sometime next week when the offseason actually commences. And I mean, hopefully nothing
Well,
happens
we're in
too
the
quickly.
offseason now, technically.
I mean,
The World
okay,
Cup's
yeah,
over.
okay, let me phrase this properly. You got me before the pod started. Bo Bichette cannot sign with another team until at least Thursday. There we go. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And that's the first question I got for you guys. What happens with Bo?
I think it's very simple. I think it's very simple. I think you pay what it takes to bring him in. And honestly, here's a thing about the offseason as a whole. There's really 2 main questions, really. One is the Bo Bichette question, and 2 is the starting pitching question. The one being Bo Bichette, it's not really a question. It's you have to sign him, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. I understand the injuries. I understand the diminished athleticism because we did see even before this injury that Bo Bichette just for whatever reason just diminished in sprint speed all season long, and that was an issue. And we obviously know the positional questions and the versatility moving forward, but the guy's just too much of a gamer. He's too clutch. He's an excellent hitter, and he's means too much to this franchise. He's worth the money. Pay him. It's a simple question. Not it's a simple answer. You pay Bo Bichette. The more important question I think is more pressing is how exactly do you go about the rotation? And obviously you have a lot of free agents. 2 guys specifically in Chris Bassett and Max Scherzer who are well over the age of 30. Max Scherzer is going to be entering his age 42 season. And obviously Shane Bieber is going to be a free agent as well. Do you try to bring him back, try to run it back? You maybe go a little externally. You maybe go after, I'll rip off some names, but not, we're going to talk about this later, but I don't know, like let's say
we're not gonna get too deep into it,
Suarez and Michael King, something like that. That's going to be the biggest question in trying to preview the offseason. But one major takeaway that I will have to preview the offseason is that this team is going to look different next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing because this team has money. And if this team just operates with the same payroll that they had last year, they're going to be able to pay Bo Bichette and bring in some difference makers around him as well. And that's assuming the payroll sticks where it is. Right now, you look at the playoff run you had. This ownership has cashed in and believed and bought in on this team and doubled down on this team when they didn't have to. This team had never had success during the Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro era. All the plans that they drew up for seasons, they all ended either prematurely, not making the playoffs, or in cartoonish fashion in the first round without winning a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a real excuse. You have a real excuse to buy in and keep spending and maybe even run a higher payroll, knock on wood, right? Knock on wood, that would be something. So regardless of how this offseason looks like, I think that as a Blue Jays fan, you should be very optimistic that one way or another, the 2026 Blue Jays on opening day, they face the Athletics, I want to say, in late March. They're going to field a very competitive and compelling team with very realistic expectations. I think that is obviously going to happen. We'll see how deep of a cut they actually make, but I think that you can expect a really sexy offseason. And if it's not if that doesn't happen, you should be disappointed. And obviously we always caution going into the offseason because of what's happened in the last few years, but that's the expectation. This is a team that is very good, that is willing to spend a lot of money, and there are free agents on the market that can help this team. As a Blue Jays fan, you should be optimistic that they're going to build a team that is going to have similar expectations in 2026.
I'm gonna piggyback off that final statement because I think that is the most true without being too specific. Because I don't want to necessarily go out there and say that it's gonna be
Raise
sexy,
expectations, yeah.
because it might not be sexy. But this goes to my
Should
apology.
be.
Uh,
Should be.
Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, and John Schneider. 3 guys that I have no problem ripping on at any point I had over the last 3 years. All of which came at the premise of I don't think you can get this team to a World Series. And then you did.
Mm-hmm.
So I apologize. That'll never happen again. We will get into debates again 100% about a John Schneider decision, but it will not be, I will not preface those with saying I do not trust him to be our manager going forward, because I do, and I do for at least the next 3 years. And Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro have at least bought them probably another 5 years, if not longer. It worked. They were potentially one Anthony Santander healthy, a one Bo Bichette healthy, a one leverage reliever away from winning a World Series.
If Bo Bichette was healthy, you win this World Series.
Yeah, so you get all the credit in the world, even despite the fact that you lost the World Series. So here's the thing. Jays fans should be optimistic that the team that's going to be on the field next year is going to be on the field for a reason. That's what I want to say. It might not be, Kyle Schwarber or Tarek Skubal or Alex Bregman or Edwin Diaz. It might not include those guys. But if it's Ernie Clement again, if it's Bo Bichette, if it's Chris Bassett again, if it's insert 5-starter to replace Max Scherzer, if it's insert leverage reliever to parlay with Jeff Hoffman, trust the process, because whatever they have going on behind the scenes worked, and you can't argue it anymore. So the free agent market isn't this year as sexy as it was in the Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani top-heavy years. Kyle Tucker's that guy this year. Bo Bichette's that guy this year. And that, again, we'll save it for another pod. But just know that they're going to run a competitive payroll, and it's going to be a team that is designed to win baseball games in October and in 162. So that's what I want to say. And on the Edwin Diaz and Alex Bregman notes, today they opted out. So that's the news of today for free agency.
Right.
And here's the thing, too. 32 years. It's been a long time since the Jays were last in the World Series. You should not expect that again. You should not expect that long of a wait again. I don't know how long it's going to take, but this team should be competitive for World Series. And, the reality is, here's the thing. You're going to run a top 5 payroll in baseball like the Jays are doing, and who knows what the payroll will look like. And obviously there's economic factors in baseball, the 2027 looming potential lockout with the implementation of the salary cap that can really change the conversation a lot. We'll see. That's years down the road. But if this team is going to be spending where they spent this year at that level, then let's just say you should expect a World Series here a lot sooner than 32 years. A lot sooner. Important not to put figures because then it's the expectations, but a lot sooner than 32 years for sure.
They signed Vladdy to a $500 million contract.
Yeah, they're all in for that contract.
That
so you should expect it within his contract,
without a doubt. And it's funny. I'll go back to a pod that we did, probably around this time last year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where Mark Shapiro came to the mic, didn't call Vladdy generational talent,
and
said that they wanted to compete the next year.
Didn't call. He said he wasn't.
Well, he didn't say no. He's never going to say no.
He didn't say no.
But he didn't say he was. Yeah.
Right.
He's like, he's a great player. All that mumbo jumbo. All right.
Yeah.
All that lawyer talk. Shout out Rob. But he mentioned that last year, right? And we did a pod after, I believe it was after the media day and stuff. And we heard Mark talk about, wanting to compete next year. And we all looked at each other and go, how? Yeah. You were dead last this year. You sucked. The big one. And they proceed to be one step away from winning the World Series. So
literally one step away.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Yeah, and also too, I do think it's really important to, Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins didn't believe in Vladdy the way that the ownership did, right?
Clearly.
If it was up to them, they wouldn't have given Vladdy that contract. They made it very clear that giving him anything close to that contract would have been an extension beyond their valuations. And the fact that ownership stepped in, I mean, that just goes to show how behind this team and this fan base ownership really is. They care about this team's success. They
Mhm.
care about the players. They know that the connection that Vlad and Bo have to the city.
Mhm.
You are in a position where you have complete faith in ownership. This is not like it was
Yeah.
back in the earlier days where like for example, in 2015 and 2016, that run was great, but we knew there was a cap on it because one, the roster was aging, but two, you didn't know if you'd ever have an ownership that was willing to spend and go and sit at the big boy table. Now you do. And now you do. And now not only has this team been sitting at the big boy table for the last few years, they've given you a reason to make
Yeah.
to not leave the big boy
To not
table
leave.
with the
That's
success
what I
that
was just
they've
gonna
given.
say. Now Rogers finally has proof of concept. Before,
Yes.
And Rob brought this up multiple times in the Vladdy conversations. Is the reason why you don't give Vladdy the contract that we think he's going to get is because Rogers has no proof of concept that Vladdy could be a guy that's worth the juice. He's not gonna. He might not get you to a World Series if spending $500 million on Vlad doesn't get you to a World Series, and it's not worth spending that money from a business perspective, regardless of how much money you have in ownership. So they did it before having proof of concept. Immediately were rewarded with proof of concept, and now, like Rob said, should not just be at the big boy table and competing with the Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto contracts.
You should have a reserve spot at the big boy table for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, you should have a reserve spot, and you should be in the bidding war with Steve Cohen. Like you should be
Here's the
in
thing.
that room.
Here's the thing too. This isn't Tampa or Oakland where look, Tampa or Oakland, you look at the early 2010s and they had these great teams that would win that division and make the playoffs, but at the end of the day the owner would sit there and be like, "Okay, great, but no matter how much I spend, there's not going to be any fans in that building."
Yeah,
right?
nobody showed up year after year. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Whereas with Rogers, like we've seen now, like if this team is good, you are going to make that money back very,
Cool.
very quickly. The fan interest is there. You can't ask for a better fan base in terms of support.
No.
This city was all in on this team. They were ready. We were all ready to flip cars. We were all ready to ride horse on Bremner, like George Springer said. If you are going to invest in this team, they will repay you. This city will repay you.
Yeah, they just had a record-setting $25 million 50-50 winner from Oshawa, Ontario, take home a life-changing amount of money, a lottery amount of money, not a 50-50 amount of money, a lottery amount of money. So Rogers has full proof of concept to invest in this team, invest in this city, invest in these fans, invest in the infrastructure at Rogers Centre, which I was actually at a conference today, a Toronto sports conference today, and the vice president of corporate partnerships at the Toronto Blue Jays, Mark Dittmers, was speaking, and he said there's more renovations to be done this year, and at the end of opening day, when opening day rolls around this year, they will have spent $600 million in that stadium over the last 4 years. So they're not done. The Rogers Centre is not done being improved, and it is legitimately becoming, and Toronto fans proved it, it has legitimately become a place to experience the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's not just about the baseball game on the field. It's about creating memories at the ballpark, watching the Toronto Blue Jays play baseball. So they've done an incredible job, and they're not done. And Rogers seems like they're going to continue to back this entire organization from the ground up.
You know, and I think what's different about, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, unless Rob, you have something else you want to touch on.
One last thing before you finish.
Go for it. Go for it.
No, go ahead. I want you go ahead. You have your part. I want to get one last sign off.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned, Cole, about how it's, you know, not just the players in the field. We all felt like we did a part in this. You know, it wasn't just the guys in the field, and you heard it how many times in interviews and whatnot. With the players, not prompted. Was it like, yeah, we want it for the fans, or yeah, we want it for the country? You know, it was never as well. You know, what do you think it means to that? No. It was none of that. They all it prompted, and they loved each other. And that was the other thing. They loved each other so much. That word loved was used so damn much in these end of season conferences. You're hearing Ernie Clement in tears for 40 minutes and then comes to the mic and is still crying, and he's saying, I just want a couple hours with these guys. I don't want to go. Chris Batts is saying, I just want another chance with these dudes. These guys are like brothers. And it's just like, you don't hear that too often at end of season stuff. But these guys were like a family. And to an extension, us as Jays fans, everybody watching this team felt like an extension of that. And that's what made this season so special, to not only the fans, but clearly to the players as well. You got Rob.
Absolutely. One last thing I do want to say, and I think at this age, it's still 48 hours, but we're around that mark of obviously the most gut wrenching loss ever, and you have to be upset. There's no way. We're gonna be distressed. We're all distressed right now. We're trying to work our way through it. Embrace that emotion. It's valid. But at the end, when the time passes, and it will, I'm sure there are people listening. People, I'm sure all of us. We've probably gone through experiences that probably have far greater impact on our lives than
Yeah.
baseball team not winning a World Series. We've all gone through those moments and made it through the other side. It will
I don't
happen.
know.
There is light. Well, then I
Yeah.
congratulate
Sorry
you
to
on
hear
your
that.
an unbelievable 25 years of life. But regardless, there will be light at the end of the tunnel. There will be days where you'll feel better and it won't be as painful. And once that day comes, try to appreciate what an incredible season it was, what an incredible team. Think about all the joy that it brought you over the course of this summer and all the connections you had with, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, whatever, your partner, loved ones. Because that's what this sport's all about. And appreciate what a great season it was. And at the same time, be optimistic. Be optimistic and believe in this team. Believe in this ownership group. Believe in these players because this is not the same old Blue Jays. They proved it last year with the Vlad contract. This is a line of demarcation for this franchise. This is not a one-off scenario like it was in 2015 and 16. This is a team that is going to have the expectation to be very good for a very long time.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you guys. This season was tough, but I don't think this will be the last time that we'll be talking about a World Series in the
Yeah.
Sick podcast era.
I have a few final thoughts. And I think I want to bring up some personal stories just to put this series and this connection and this run into perspective because Rob brought up family and I hadn't even brought these stories up. I haven't said these to anybody, I don't think. My mom, who has never fully bought into baseball, or at least bought into the Toronto Blue Jays in her entire life, had fully bought in this year, was sending me reels on Facebook, was telling me about all these great moments. I spent I think 2 hours on a phone call with her after the ALCS, just explaining to her, my feelings towards this team and everything that I thought that she should know going into the World Series, and to the point where she wants me to do this, and I made a deal with her that I was only going to do it if the Jays won the World Series because I wouldn't be able to do it if they didn't. She wanted me to make a scrapbook of all the most important moments that happened from last year's season, going into this year's season, into eventually, capping it off hopefully at the end of the scrapbook with winning the World Series. She wanted me to do that. She knows that I am not an arts and crafts guy. I absolutely fucking hate arts and crafts. I got into sports media for a reason. I can't write. I don't read. I want nothing to do with pen and paper. Nothing. And I told her that if the Jays win the World Series, I'll make you a fucking scrapbook. That's my first personal story. My second personal story, and the reason why I ended up going to Game 6 of the World Series for $1,700 is because on Sunday night, which would have been the day before Game 3, I had a friend reach out to me who, again, same thing, had never really fully bought into the Blue Jays, understood my fandom. From Nova Scotia, she said, are you going to a World Series game? And I was like, nah, like I tried. I had a budget of $500 when I was in pre-sale. I saw that they were $529. I took it as a sign, just over my budget just to make me hesitate. I won't spend it. It's probably a good financial decision not to spend it. And she then wanted to rally her and her dad and her boyfriend to give me $500. $800, $1,000 to buy a ticket to Game 6 or 7, and although it ended up that I did not take her money, I instead cashed it on Christmas presents and used the credit card. The point is that she understood, or she had a thought process of what this moment could possibly mean to a Blue Jays fan like myself, and us three share a very identical passion for this Blue Jays team. So that's just two moments that's never happened in my life, and I think that was very cool. And my final sign off for this podcast, and for hopefully any more negative talk on this Toronto Blue Jays team, is thank you. I cannot wait for the day that I get over it and I get to fully enjoy what we just witnessed over the course of 6 months. I've already said it was the greatest sports season of my entire life, which I don't know how it gets better than that, but despite me saying it, emotionally I don't feel it. So today, 48 hours after,
It'll come.
I want to say thank you to the Toronto Blue Jays for this moment, but I cannot wait until I finally get to actually emotionally embrace it 100%.
I mean, it's a good point right at the end there. Also, awesome stories. That's that's what sports does. It brings people close. It brings people together that you wouldn't usually expect.
All of us, we were close because of the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays are the genesis of all of us knowing each other.
Exactly. So that's what sports does. It's so awesome. And yeah, I think we can all agree on the sentiment of thank you, Toronto Blue Jays, for making this summer just one of the best. Always looking to be glued to the TV or try and find a way to get downtown to a game or something. Regardless of the price, it didn't really matter. You knew you were going to get an awesome experience at the ballpark.
Because they deserve it. They deserve my money with how they take it seriously. And,
yeah. It was one hell of a year. Boys, I think we're going to wrap it up now. The 2025 season is over. Didn't end exactly where we wanted it to be, but as Cole put it perfectly, thank you, Toronto Blue Jays, for, without a doubt, the best Blue Jays season in all of our lives here. It's been so fun, and with the payroll keep going up, hopefully there's more seasons like this to come and get that actual World Series ring at some point in time. So for myself, James Price, Rob Bentillamon, Cole Whiston, and Jimmy, behind the glass as always, we thank you so much for listening and watching throughout this entire year. It's a lot of fun. And as always, go Jays.
Go Jays!
Go Jays, baby.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.